Welcome to the 10-day growth hacking challenge with your host, Nader Sabri. Today, you're here with Ibrahim, who runs an escrow service in the fintech space. We're going to be talking about his growth hack number one, where he's tackling awareness problems to get more, let's say, revenue towards him, but needs to create awareness to get it there. Before we get started, this is all based on the Growth Thinking book, which is a growth design methodology used by 5,000 plus growth hackers around the world who use this as a way to design their growth hacks and consistently implement growth capabilities in their organizations. Welcome aboard, Ibrahim. How you doing today?
Thanks a lot, Nader. Doing well. Happy to be here. Thanks for taking time out.
Awesome. Well, I mean, congratulations one last time for being nominated to get on this challenge. And you've been nominated by somebody who's quite significant, which is awesome. You know, it's awesome to see people believing in other people and knowing that they've got capability. And this is about taking, potentials and turning into actuals. And that's what this system is about. And taking action is one of the key things about making this work. Action can pretty well change everything in your life. So here we are today. Why don't we get started by talking about what was Growth Hack 1 when we first designed it, what has happened, and where we are with it right now.
All right, awesome. So essentially, as an escrow platform, one of the key verticals that we're looking at is mergers and acquisition. Right now in the UAE market, in the local market, it's underserved when it comes to M&A. Some of the big banks, they charge upwards of $50,000 to facilitate escrow transactions, which really, costs them next to nothing. So what we agreed to do is to reach out, or just kind of collate a league table of the top law firms, and then do a ranking of who's doing the most escrow, and kind of keep tabs, or just kind of create a working list of who the key players are in this industry. And we've done that. So in the past week during this growth hack, I've searched online tools. I found a great tool which is called Legal 500, which essentially has the top law firms in the UAE, and it's actually quite a nice resource. It ranks, has a Hall of Fame, up and coming stars, but it does not have numbers on the actual escrow transactions or how much what's called client money has been handled. So through Legal 500, I've collated a list of the top firms that are doing. That are active in the fields that do the most escrow, which is commercial and corporate, which are the ones that do the mergers and acquisitions. Shipping, quite a bit of client money is handled through shipping, where they have chartering payments or a ship sale and purchase, and then real estate. So real estate also sees quite a bit of escrow. So from these three segments within the legal community, or within the legal kind of specialties, I've created a list of the top firms. Again, wasn't able to collate any data. I did touch base though with some of my friends that are lawyers within the ecosystem, within the three separate tiers. And as far as on the M&A front, what I learned is that it's not the law firm that chooses the escrow agent. It's actually the buy side. So it's the private equity firm, it's the asset manager that is acquiring the other entity. They're the ones that decide which escrow agent they typically go with. And that was very valuable because that helped me really refine who I need to target. Collating this list of law firms has been a useful exercise, but I think what made it useful is helping me really realize who I need to go after. Yep. The firms themselves, when clients come to them and say, we need you to advise on an M&A transaction, they'll say, great, who are you using for escrow? If they don't have somebody for escrow, they can tell them, well, we've heard of Titanium Escrow. We know that they're quite successful. So we could be kind of a referral, but the firms don't take on any liability. They'll say, we've heard of them. We don't facilitate for them, nor are we party to them.
Yeah.
So still quite a bit of value in reaching out to these firms, making them aware of our services, but really, we need the buy-in from the buy side. So we need them to choose us, or to mandate us as the escrow platform. And really, when it comes to M&A, there's multiple tiers that require escrow. So the first stage of acquisition, and I'm sure you're familiar with this now, is discovery. So one party approaches the other and they say, hey, we're interested in buying you. Open up your, let's take a look at your financials. And so best practice, which is not actively done here, is to put the, once a price is agreed, to put that amount into escrow. And it provides a comfort to the company that's being acquired that the funds are available and they'll be drawn against, and that the company that's the acquirer or the buy side is not just wasting time kicking tires, which tends to happen a lot, I believe.
Yeah.
So so yeah, this growth hack was great and really helping us get down to the details of what we need to do, who we need to market to, and
Excellent.
it's not necessarily the firms. Yeah. So with the
Well, I
firms, it's
think
awareness.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think I think it's really good. Like you managed to get some insights you didn't have before this process to get more refined in the sense of the target. So I think like as an achievement, I think that's pretty good. And I think this validates the hack in another way where you can use that intelligence as a rank to speak to those customers directly, sort of from the buy side. So even if the buy side
Yeah.
goes through the intermediary, which happens to be the law firm, you would
Yeah.
provide them the insight saying, okay, well, here are the top 10 law firms by size and by volume of Escrow. And so you know who to go to because they just do more volume or whatever the case might be. And so what
Yeah.
that does is it not also shows that you understand what you're doing, but it gives a credible tool from a competitive perspective why they should work with you versus somebody else. At the
Yeah.
same time, I'm not sure if the buy side can work directly with you without having to go through the law firm. But in that particular case, it may actually put you one step closer to the buyer because you put that intelligence in place, and that becomes like a business development tool directly with the buy side, which then gives you the credibility and gives them the insights and intelligence to make the right decision who to use for the service. So I think ultimately, I think that can serve a purpose in multiple ways. Plus, when you come to publish this, you'll start to identify other players in the ecosystem which you didn't see, and I mean on a granular level. So maybe there's like the four top M&A companies that you can think of that you can work with, and they're highly identifiable. But then there's like these smaller shops, right, which could be not visible to you at all, who identify this and then come to you. So it eventually will, it's kind of like a net. You throw the net into the sea and you come back like this, and it'll be able to generate, I think, some other business for you. The other thing I was going to ask you, so when you get closer to the buy side, have you had any conversations with them yet? Or is that something, because as a result of this, you will be having deeper conversations with them as well?
So I have actually had some buy side clients reach out to me.
Okay.
Saying we need, we have an M&A deal, we need an escrow agent, and they're still kind of confused. They're still, not quite set. And I think this kind of comes to our next growth hack, which is as far as induction or onboarding.
Yeah.
But no, as far as an actual targeted marketing campaign, I have not yet undertook that. But that will be next. I mean, from the intel that I've gathered from this growth hack, I think I'm well positioned to be able to do a very targeted niche marketing campaign to the buy side, saying,
Exactly.
we're a local escrow agent. You can do it in dirhams, and we we're significantly cheaper than $50,000. So yeah, no, I haven't gathered intel from buy side, or nor have I had in-depth conversations with kind of the real target clients. But again, I've had a few incoming queries saying, we're looking to acquire a company, and we need an escrow agent to hold the funds and to pay out shareholders.
Yeah. See, and another thing that could be interesting, and I'm just throwing this out just in general as an addition to this challenge, and it's something just food for thought, nothing more. We used to do these kind of demand assessments. Demand assessments is like we go to a market, for example, your buy side, and we determine certain questions like, do you plan to use escrow services in the next 12 months? Yes. How much of these services do you plan to use in the number of transactions and in the size of volume? Now, this is not a commitment, but it gives you an idea of what's about to come. And this kind of demand assessment gives us an ability to be able to segment a market. Obviously, it goes a little bit deeper than that. But the reason I mentioned to it is not just the data, which is going to be valuable for you to publish, but it allows you to create a context to have a deeper relationship with some of the buy side clients that you may be pursuing. Food for thought. It's a way of potentially pivoting on this particular growth hack and taking it into that direction, either in combination of, or you can completely go into that direction. But I think until you have more conversations with the buy side, this will not be very clear until you get really deep into understanding the pain points and how you're going to work with those pain points in an effective way. So the more conversations you have, the better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. I need to get in with the buy side and have that targeted marketing campaign. I think a big part of it also, what I need to do is kind of beef up credibility. Being an escrow company, we're all about selling trust. We're licensed, we're regulated, we work with the best partners. We're essentially structured in a way where, there's no doubt against the trust. Being able to explain that I think what works best in this market is transfer credibility, and essentially being able to set up that transfer credibility. So I think that's one thing that we've also kind of helped pinpoint. So,
yeah, I think that's a good insight, because if you work with the law firms, which are the intermediaries between you and the buyer, if you're working with like the top 3 or 5 or 10, whatever it is, law firms who are most of the transactions anyways, that instantly gives you credibility, and then you go from there. So I think the law firms are still going to be a vital part of your strategy, and I think you need to utilize that very well. So I don't think you will kill the rank that we're talking about. I think it'll probably be an addition to the other side, and that data becomes even wider, and it gives you a wider perspective that you can talk about in the public through ranking, but also on the business development side, that allows you to get closer to some of these firms. What will be very interesting, by the way, as your data gets richer, is providing feedback to some of these guys, even if the feedback isn't really deep, but it's an interesting way to have a conversation. Hey, we noticed the following in the data. We would just wanted to share with you. We had a few ideas or suggestions. They're more or less, I mean, we just give them to you. What you do with them is up to you, but that's a great way of deepening the relationship and using actual, factual data to do that. So there's a lot you can do with this. I mean, we've done this before with other contenders in different ways, in a B2C setup, and using more of a B2B. We've done this in the consulting industry. So this is not like something new. Sometimes the 101 kind of old tricks in the book actually continue to work. Like their lifespan is very large. How they're applied is where the change is. So that's kind of what we're talking about more or less here, is just the application of it in a more strategic way. And then boom, putting that growth hack into play, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely it's an important part. I mean, client money and escrow is something that's quite critical, but everybody kind of shies away from. Even the firms that I've tried to touch with, like I tried to reach out to some friends at law firms and just kind of get an idea of how much client money, how much escrow they process. And they're like, you know what, we don't keep intelligence on that. Maybe somebody within the finance department could go through and tally the bank accounts, but other than that, it's not something that they actively track. It's just which is quite strange.
It's very strange, because if they're in the middle writing the contracts will have the numbers that will be put into escrow. So they probably do tally the numbers. Maybe the individuals you're talking to don't know those numbers genuinely.
Possible.
And somebody else knows those numbers. So I don't think it's a finance department thing. Finance is more of an administrative function in those type of organizations. Who will know it is probably the lead lawyer or the lead partner on that, who's involved deeply in that transaction, who read and wrote the contract, obviously, because they got to put those numbers in there, and it'll be clearly stated, black and white, what goes into escrow. Well, even if it's like a percentage of the transaction, they'll still know it. Just there's nobody counting it. That's the problem.
So let me just clarify that point. So the firms themselves, they don't do the escrow, or they will do it. So for example, one of the firms that I spoke with is a US multinational law firm, and they're like, look, in order for us to even accept client money, it has to get approved by head office in the US. It has to be approved by the head of the country here in the UAE. It's a very, very difficult process, and they rarely ever do it. And that's why, maybe this individual, this lawyer that I spoke with, didn't have specific details on it, because it seems to be very, very tightly controlled. It's not something that they actively push for or kind of commercialize. And again, most of the time when there is an M&A deal, there will be an independent escrow agent, and not the actual firm that's taking on that client money.
No, 100%. I think they're avoiding the liability of something going wrong with the transaction, which is passed to the escrow agent, which is you in this case. And so, good point. But the thing is, though, the way to get around that is to get to an estimate. And so be like, okay, guys, just out of the transactions, whether you touched it or recommended it or whatever the case might be, if you've done $1 billion in transactions in the last 12 months, how much of that has gone through escrow? Period. That's it. That's all we actually really need at the moment, until you can get more granular. And I think that changes the context of the conversation. There's a bit of lost in translation there, right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Agreed. Awesome. So, okay, anything else you want to share with us about this hack? Maybe anything else you want to share with us before we close down and wait another 3 days for your next growth hack?
So I did actually get some intel, which is about $150 million goes from DIFC law firms to escrow, typically through HSBC or through the multinationals. So that was kind of a ballpark figure. This was kind of one of the largest firms, thinking, the other top 5 large firms. having equal number of transactions on a monthly basis. That was kind of the figure that I kind of came up with. But what I'd love to do and what I'd do next is be able to break that down by firm and kind of get better ranking to be able to kind of create some healthy competition.
Yeah, you need to get granular. But what's interesting as well is before you go granular, go a little bit macro first. So if you see the total amount of transactions. So if it's like 1 billion and 150 million is going through escrow, we know that 15% of it is gone through escrow. So that could be a very crucial number for you in the sense of the boundaries of growth. All right. So people can see that, like, guys, like, I mean, there's a lot more room here for escrow service. Then you break it down granular. I think getting that larger number may be easier than you think if you manage to get the number which goes into escrow, which is pretty good. So I think that definitely can be figured out. And then just go granular, man. That's it. Yeah. Awesome, man. I love it.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So this is Ibrahim with Titanium Escrow. He's in the escrow business. We're solving 3 growth problems about awareness, onboarding, and then creating more consistent services that provide more consistent revenue. He's in a relatively new space when it comes to this because he's tackling different type of transactions. We'll be going a little bit deeper to this in hack number 2 and 3. For those tuning in who want to know more about Ibrahim, what he does, go below. His information will be available. You can reach out to him directly. As a final reminder, this is based on the growth thinking methodology, which is what we're using to growth hack in this challenge. You can pick up a copy and do it yourself. And there we go. Ibrahim, good luck. We'll see you in hack number 2.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Nazir. Thanks, everybody.
See you.
Take care.